That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Critics are calling Thunderbolts one of the best Marvel movies of all time. Yeah! It begins a powerful new era.
That's what they talk about!
Rolling Stone calls it thrilling.
I should have seen this coming.
Funny and irreverent.
Thank you. We needed that.
And it must be seen in IMAX. Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts. Now playing. Rated PG-13. Some material may be inappropriate for children under 13.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Duke fans, hello. Welcome to episode number 726 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. It is Friday, May 2nd, 2025. And for the first time in about 347 days, it feels like, I am Donald Juan. I'm your host for this episode. And I have Jason Evans, who is back home in the United States after his gallivanting trips around the block that is Japan. Jason, how you doing, man? I'm sure you're tired.
I'm incredibly jet lagged. My body can't decide what time of the world what time it is, and where I am in the world. Yeah, I'm super tired.
Did you say what time of the world it is? Because that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's about where I am. Look, I went to Tokyo. I went to Takayama, which is a small village in the Japanese Alps, where the cherry blossoms were in full bloom. If you're someone who's a Facebook friend of mine, if you're someone who follows me on the social media platform once known as Twitter, then I posted an incredible photo of my wife amid the cherry blossoms, like one of the best photos I've ever taken in my life. It was great fun. We also went to Kyoto, Hiroshima, Miyajima Island. We were all over Japan. And Donald, I will tell you, the highlight, like the one most memorable thing of the entire trip, it was the food, man. I ate some crazy ass food. Let me tell you. Eels and conch shell stuff. Oh man, it's so wild. But it was tons of fun, and I loved it. I was with an old Duke buddy of mine. Donald, by the way, this is why the connections we make at Duke are just so wonderful, and why you and I love the school so much. My wife and I went to Japan with a guy that I met the first day I was at Duke, who is in the dorm room like 2 doors down from me. His name is Geraldo Gutierrez. Geraldo and I are friends for life. We travel around the world together, but with his wife, Tina, who also went to Duke, because of the connections we made. And by the way, my biggest connection to Geraldo was that he and I were part of a group of about eight or 10 guys that camped out in line for every game for Duke basketball. We met freshman year on our hall. We got together a group of guys and we were all like, we're going to go to every single Duke basketball game. In fact, we said we're going to try to be first in line to every single Duke basketball game for 4 years. And we pretty much succeeded. There were some games we were, like third or fourth in line, but these are lifetime friends that we make and that we continue to connect with because of Duke and because of Duke basketball.
They say once you share a tent with somebody, you know them. So that makes a lot of sense. But I will say, Jason, first of all, everybody is going to Japan. Like, I had some friends that went to Japan. They came back. There was like a week break. Then another set of friends went to Japan. They came back. And right as they were coming back, you left. Now you're back. And now another friend of mine is going back to Japan. Everybody's going to Japan. DBR Podcast at gmail.com. Someone take me with you, first of all. And second of all, Jason, the cherry blossoms in Japan, I hear, are great. I've always wanted to see them in Japan, but it's not necessarily like high on my bucket list because I can walk outside my front door and see the cherry blossoms here in DC, which were magnificent this year. So, but a great time, and really the food. That's what I'm there for.
Man, it was just.
I'm not a big like sushi person, but I feel like in Japan I would become a sushi person. Like, I'm sure everything was super fresh and tasted delicious.
Yeah, literally our first lunch we had in Japan. I guess the second day we arrived, one day mid-afternoon. The next day we were on a tour of Tokyo, and we went to the old fish market. The new fish market you can't really get to unless you're an actual fish dealer or a fisherman. But we went to the old fish market, and we went to a seafood place, a sushi place where, I think they were cutting sushi for us from fish that had been caught like that morning or yesterday morning. Dude, I love sushi. This was just next level. And by the way, all American seafood, all American sushi restaurants, you don't do crab right. We get fake crab here in the U.S. It's really hard to get the real thing.
Well, we get some restaurants here, right? It depends, right? Because we're in crab territory, so we can do that. But yes, most people get the little sticks.
Yeah, those are not real.
Well, yeah,
I love crab sushi. I'm coughing. I have a little tiny bit of a cold. I love crab sushi. The crab sushi we got in Japan was just like just beyond anything I've had here in the U.S. It was really great, and it was authentic. You could tell. We also ate tiny little sardine sushi. Like, literally, the sardines are so small that they put like 50 of them on one piece of. They're like sardine babies. Their eyes stare at you back. Their eyes stare back at you when you eat them. It's very disconcerting. You're eating the whole damn sardine. Very weird.
Yeah, so nobody's going to be staring at me while I eat it. This is not how that's going to work. They're going to have to chop those off. But glad you had a great trip. We're going to talk more about what you missed after the break. But first, let's get to the biggest news that we've had since Jason has returned. Jason comes back to the United States. He does not bring a sumo wrestler for the football team, but he somehow got an assistant coach hired. And Jon Scheyer has made a hire to replace Jay Lucas. That hire is Evan Brads. Now, you're probably thinking, Evan Brads, that guy seems familiar yet not, because he is familiar yet not. He just turned 31 back on April 19th, so he's a young guy. He played ball at Belmont, graduated in 2017, never played Duke in those 4 years. We played Belmont before he arrived on campus. When he graduated, he immediately went into coaching, first with the Maine Red Claws of the G League and the Boston Celtics. He was promoted to assistant coach for the Boston Celtics, kind of on their player enhancement staff in 2021. And then in 2022, he moved on to become an assistant coach for the Utah Jazz, which is where he comes to Duke from. So this is, Jason, a hire that's outside of the program, right? Outside of the brotherhood, no real links to the university, but clearly the pipeline that we have with some of the Duke guys that we have both in Boston and in Utah seem to be the impetus for this particular hire. If you recall, Brad Stevens, who was very, very close with Jon Scheyer and really the program, despite not being a part of it, a lot of our guys have gone to serve under him, and Evan Brads was a great recommendation from him, apparently.
Yeah, well, it's not just Brad Stevens. Two of Jon Scheyer's closest friends in the coaching profession, in the coaching world, are Joe Mazzulla, who's the head coach of the Celtics, and Will Hardy, who's the head coach at Utah. All three of those guys are about the same age. Like, they are in their late 30s. I think Mazzulla might be 40. But
Mazzulla and Scheyer played each other. I was at the game.
Yeah.
In the NCAA tournament in 2008.
Yeah, exactly. So these guys are all the same age. They are all huge rising stars in the coaching profession. head coach of the Celtics, head coach of the Utah Jazz, head coach of Duke University. These are three big stars in the coaching profession, and they know each other really well. And I guarantee you that, yes, you're probably right, that the Duke-Celtic connection, which goes, by the way, through the Pagliuca family as well, the Duke-Celtic connection played a role in this with Brad Stevens. But Jon Scheyer, I'm sure, got on the phone to Joe Mazzulla, got on the phone to Will Hardy and said, tell me a little bit about this guy. Do you think does he make sense? I love the fact that Evan Brads is someone who was deeply, deeply involved in NBA player development. I think there's some false belief among some people out there that practice doesn't matter once you get to the NBA, that they don't spend as much time on practice, that player development is not that big a thing. That would be a lie. That would be wrong. It is a huge part of every successful NBA team. Some of the best players in the league are guys, heck, all of them are guys who came in the league not fully developed. The NBA takes player development very, very seriously, and Evan Brads is someone who has an incredible player development reputation around the league. So I'm super, super excited to get him at Duke. I think it also, just really quick, I know you want to get in, I think it sends a message about what Duke is trying to do for its players as well. We've brought in a guy who was in player development for an NBA team, and we said, this is the guy who's going to be developing you so that you can play in the NBA someday. Hello? It's a no-brainer. It makes perfect sense. And I think it's a pairing of two of the better young minds in college basketball, in coaching, to have Jon Scheyer with Evan Brads, who's just someone who has a very bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, I was going to mention the fact that he coached in the NBA. He has that coaching experience, and most specifically, the player development side of things. And just like last year, right, in the roster, we went and got Mason Gillis. Mason Gillis had just gone to the national title game, and they wanted someone on this team to be like, this is the way. This is how you get to that point. This is how you get to that next level where you can compete for a national championship. I have been to that level before. This is how we get back. This is a similar, kind of mind frame, right? Like you bring in a guy who says, you want to get to the NBA? I can help you get to the NBA, but also I can prepare you for what life is like in the NBA, how you develop, how you go about your duties and your responsibilities, and how you need to execute at this level so that you're ready for the next level. And so when some of these guys do realize their dream of getting to the NBA, it's not a shock to them. It's not a culture shock. They don't have to have a high learning curve. They're ready to go. This is what this is about. But also, Jason, I look at the fact that when we look across this expanding universe of assistant coaches that we do have, we have guys from all different eras, right? From Carrawell now down to a guy who just played in college 7 years ago, or 8 years ago. And we have a group of guys who can really relate to any player. We got guys who are experienced. We got guys who have less experience. We have guys who have played in the NBA or coached in the NBA. We have guys who were elite in college. And I think the final thing is the NIL portion of this. Younger coaches, and this is no disrespect to the guys who are a little bit older on our staff, because Chris Carrawell, I think, is the oldest guy. Or I'm sorry, Will Avery. And Will Avery is a couple years older than I. So he's not that old, right? He's still in that, youngish type of mind frame when you're thinking about coaching.
Yeah.
The NIL portion of this is going to be important because as this evolves, you need guys who are going to be quick to adapt to that. And pretty soon, Jason, we're going to have coaches who lived this, right? Who were in college when NIL was a thing. We're right on the cusp of that with hiring Evan Brad. So the ability to adapt to this ever-changing world of NIL and the transfer portal and knowing guys who are able to kind of, again, very quickly go, hey, here's the experience that we can give you at Duke. Here's what you can, as you learn to compete, we're not even going to teach you how to compete. We're going to teach you how to compete so that when you go to the NBA, even that's a cakewalk for you. Even that is going to be a walk in the park because we have the guys in place that can show you the way and show you what it is like to be at the next level so you won't have that culture shock when you do get drafted. So that is a really big thing, and I'm really excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, a little bit more on Evan Brads really quick. First of all, just so folks know, this is a guy who is an absolute star at Belmont. Averaged 20 points per game as a senior, scored almost 1,900 points more than 1,900 points, almost 2,000 points in his college career. A really good rebounder, even though he was, kind of a little bit of he was a wing forward kind of type. And a guy who understands winning in college basketball. So Belmont's not a high profile program, but his 4 years there, they won 20 plus games every year. And they had a couple years where they made a little bit of noise in the postseason, either in the NIT or the NCAA tournament. And he was their best player for his final couple seasons there. And he was functionally a 4-year starter. He, never had a year where he didn't play significant minutes in a significant role for them. So he understands winning at the college level. But then the other thing, Donald, I think it's really interesting that Jon Scheyer did not elevate one of the Duke names already on the staff. It would have been, I think probably there are a lot of folks who sort of thought, oh, Justin Robinson is, sitting right there on the bench. I mean, frankly, I was at the ACC tournament. Justin Robinson is there, essentially alongside all the other coaches on that front row, where Scheyer and the rest of the team operates. It would have been very easy for Scheyer to go, oh, I've got someone in-house who has probably a very bright future in coaching, someone who knows the Duke program as well as anybody, played there for 5 years. And he could have taken J-Rob and made him into an assistant coach. But Scheyer chose not to do that. And I think part of the reason why is that Justin Robinson's still pretty young. He's still very, very new into coaching. And being an assistant coach at Duke is a big deal coaching job. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that rather than elevating Justin Robinson, Scheyer went out and hired a guy who's been in the NBA for 8 years. So, that's someone with a ton of pedigree and as I've mentioned, a great reputation. But I really like that Scheyer casts a wide net, that he doesn't just think inside the box of who is in the Duke family. And I think that this is a big, big elevation of the kind of coaching staff that we have for this team. And I think it's going to pay dividends. Look, Jay Lucas was Duke's defensive coordinator. We don't know how much it impacted the team not to have him in the NCAA tournament. It sucks. But I guarantee you Jay Lucas played a big role in developing, so many of these guys into being NBA draft picks. We're about to see 5 Blue Devil players get drafted, in the NBA draft. I'm convinced of that. I think having a guy like Evan Brads, who specifically understands the skills that it takes, what you must develop to be an NBA star, there's no accounting for how much good a guy like that can do on your staff for your team.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit when we've hired guys like Emmanuel Dildy and even Jay Lucas in the past, where the perspective of thought needs to be diversified, and you can't just have 6 guys on that coaching staff. I think it's 6 now. There's like 3 or 4 that can go recruit, and then a couple that can be assistant coaches but don't do the recruiting part of things. And when you think about those, you can't just have all Duke guys. And we've had that for so long. And I think Jon Scheyer's mind frame is, if we want to expand this program and take it to another level, we need to understand what people outside the program, their perspective. We need to understand that, and we need to have coaches that can relate to that, because we're not recruiting Duke guys, right? We're not recruiting people who are already in the program. There's not a lot of Cameron and Caden Boozers out there who have a link to this program when they are being recruited. These are guys who want to be sold on the process of not just playing in college basketball, but also playing at Duke and getting to the NBA, how that path kind of transpires for them. And so to have those outside perspectives, namely ones who have NBA experience, I think is great. You have the guys who are great recruiters. You have the guys who are great at player development. And I think that is part of the roster construction as well. Jon Scheyer is not just constructing a roster that is, can complement each other at all facets of the game, but he needs a coaching staff that can adapt as well and be each other's eyes and ears. If he needs defense, he can talk to one guy. If he needs player development tips, he can talk to another guy. If he needs offensive guru sets, he can talk to a third guy. That is how this seems to be working. This whole program seems to be working under Jon Scheyer, and so far it's working. So to add Evan Brads to this mix is going to be an interesting. It's an interesting way to bring in another perspective, but also, again, Boston Celtics. You think of Boston Celtics. I hate the Boston Celtics, But if you think of the Boston Celtics, you think of greatness. You think of a team who has won the defending NBA champions, a team who was perennially at or near the top of the league. And if you're talking about guys who can identify players as they have done so well over the past 7 to 10 years, you have one of those guys on your staff, that is a huge boost to recruiting in itself, because you can see, hey, this guy, especially those guys who are, when we talk about some of the guys that we recruit that are in like the 40s and the 50s, and people go, wait, why? We're supposed to be going after top 10 recruits. We need those guys that can figure out a way to vault themselves up the rankings, not just in the recruiting battle, but once they get to Duke, be those guys that come out of nowhere and then everyone goes, wow, how did Duke land this guy? How did they figure out this guy was going to be great? It's in the eyes of some of these guys who have seen the talent and know, hey, I can take this guy and turn him into a star.
Yeah, nothing else to say. We've gone on way too long about this, and I'm just really eager to hear from Evan Brads and find out how he impacts this program, because I think it's a very positive kind of thing. And look, as a segue somewhat to what we're going to be talking about next, I think that he can have an impact on whether guys decide, oh, I should come back to Duke or I should go to Duke versus I should go to the NBA. Evan Brads is someone who can explain to you exactly what it takes to be successful in the NBA, and he's someone who can help you get there.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're going to talk, because Jason's been gone for a couple of weeks off and on, minus a quick train ride appearance. We're going to talk a little bit more about roster construction after this, but we will come back. We'll talk about roster construction, and we got some academic honors to hand out. So stay with us. Be right back.
Hey, Duke fans, make this your best season yet with a nutritious 2-minute meal from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want.
Jason, the meals are terrific too, and they arrive fresh and ready to eat, which gives you more time to get outside and enjoy this lovely spring weather that we're having. They have 45 weekly menu options, so you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals, whether it's satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, or premium dinners. And I enjoy the fact that they're filling, and I don't feel the need to snack between meals.
Yeah, that's always good for your waistline. Get started, everybody, at factormeals.com/DukeBB50off. Use that code DukeBB50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that is code DukeBB50off at factormeals.com for 50% off plus free shipping.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we are back, and we're catching up because Jason's been abroad for a couple of weeks, and while he was gone, there has been a lot of talk about roster construction, both guys departing for the NBA, but also some of the guys that we have kept. And of course, in the case of Cedric Coward, a transfer portal addition to next year's team. We also, we talked about Shelton Henderson decommitting from Duke. He ends up at Miami. But really, we're talking about this roster, this 2025-26 roster. Right now, 10 guys are on the roster, and it still leaves room, Jason, for maybe one or two more transfer portal additions. If you note Cameron Sheffield, who was not a main part of the rotation last year, most do not expect him to factor into the main part of the rotation next year. But of course, that can obviously change through summer practice and how things develop. But I think there's still maybe time for one or two more pieces to be added to this puzzle. But overall, your take of what's happened so far, what's kind of transpired, and how this roster is shaping up for next season.
So, I mean, I got on and I explained how excited I was about Cedric Coward and how I think he can impact both ends of the floor. And I think he has the potential the potential to be perhaps the second best player on this team, second or third probably, if he comes to Duke. And that's just a huge boost to the Duke program to have a guy like that on the wing that you can count, who's experienced. We can go on and on about the number of ways that Cedric Coward would be a major impact player for Duke. I love the way the roster is set up. I do very much agree that there are a couple spots still available on this roster. First of all, I don't think for a moment that Jon Scheyer wants to go into the season with only 10 guys for practice, including Cameron Sheffield, who, as you said, is probably not really a rotation player. My bet is that Scheyer would like to get, I think, probably 2 more players to help out in practice and also potentially be in the rotation if there are injuries or other things like that. I mean, look, we saw a year ago, Malik Brown, Pat Gongba. These are both of our big men are guys who have struggled with injury and with missing time for injury in the past. So I definitely think that Scheyer is trying to find. Now, look, he's not trying to find you can look at the transfer portal rankings and who are the top 10 centers, top 20. Shirer's not looking for that kind of thing because we know that Gongba and Malik Brown are going to play significant roles. Scheyer is looking for someone kind of like a Neil Begovic type, I would think, someone who is mostly a practice body and a late in blowouts kind of player, but yet someone who deserves a scholarship, someone who you can work against in practice. Stanley Borden, frankly, was that as well, and even prior to that, the kid who went to Clemson, and it's now
Christian Reeves.
Christian Reeves, yes. Prior to that, Christian Reeves was that kind of player, a guy who's not who very much can impact your team as a practice player, but if you had injuries, they could also in a pinch help you out a little bit. So I think he's probably looking for someone like that. And then I think he's also looking for a young player. Scheyer wants to be able to develop youngsters and have them come back, the same way we've seen basically with almost all the starters for next year's team. At least 3 of them, I think, are very likely to be guys who are returnees, who were young players at Duke and who have gotten better over the course of time. In the case of Caleb Foster, Isaiah Evans, and Pat Gongba. And Darren Harris, for that matter. So I think Scheyer wants another youngster. That would be my bet. We've heard some names tossed about. I don't want to get into too much of it. It's also possible it could be a young international player as opposed to a young domestic high school kid. But I think this roster is not close to done. Donald, the other thing I wanted to talk about really quickly, there are so many Duke fans out there who are really nervous, really worried because both Isaiah Evans and Cedric Coward are still considering the NBA draft.
Oh yeah, I was going to talk about this. Go ahead because I got thoughts.
Oh, actually, I've talked for a while. You do your thoughts first, and then I'll talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for those who obviously weren't aware, of course, Isaiah Evans, in very cool fashion, right? They kind of said, "Hey, Slim, you back for next year?" And he goes, "Yeah," on Twitter, and that was kind of what they posted and said. Okay, Slim's back, and everyone very excited. We get Cedric Coward, and everybody's excited. Of course, Cedric Coward we knew was in the NBA draft already, or at least testing the waters, and he mentioned. Even before we recorded, Jason, that he was, hey, I'm testing the waters. I want that extra feedback, that direct feedback from NBA teams that you can only get by being in that process. And he's like, then I can have enough information to make a more informed decision. The list that the NBA provides everybody of all the underclassmen that have declared for the draft came out, the next day or 2 days later. And surprisingly, Isaiah Evans' name was on it. And a lot of people were very worried about that. Of course, Duke already knew that this was happening and that he was going to test this process. And like we've said before, there's 2 types of things that we are able to do. The reason why the brotherhood is so great is because a lot of guys don't necessarily need to enter their name into the draft to get that extra feedback. We have such a connection with so many NBA teams and so many NBA guys that we could just reach out to those guys and kind of go, hey, off the record, what would you give this guy? And what would you rate him? What would you grade him? Would he go first round, late lottery pick, second round, late second round, undrafted? Give it to us real. What does he need to work on? And so these guys can collect a lot of information that other players from other schools cannot because they don't have that reach. But still, even with that, we've had guys who have tested the NBA waters only to come back to Duke. I think a lot of people are worried, Jason, because they're thinking about the Frank Jackson situation where Frank Jackson kind of said, "Hey, I'm testing the waters, but it's all good." And then
Trevor Keels as well. It felt like Duke thought they might get Trevor Keels back, and then at the last minute he decided not to. And it's unclear whether that team prepared for not having him next year.
I think in the case of Trevor Keels, it's different because he never said, "Hey, I'm coming back." He said, "I'm entering the draft." He declared that he was entering the draft while retaining his college eligibility. So for me, at least in my mind, he was gone until he came back. Frank Jackson said, "I'm coming back, but I'm testing the waters." And then very last minute was like, "Actually, someone guaranteed me first round. I'm gone." Right. And so that was more of a.
Although Frank Jackson did not go first round, he went in the second round. But yeah.
Right. But
early in the second round, he got his pay. He got a payday. He made millions of dollars in the NBA. Yeah.
No, I'm not even concerned about that. It's more about the I'm coming back and then I'm gone. Right. That sort of thing. So a lot of people are thinking about that when they think about Isaiah Evans. I'm back, but yet I'm still kind of testing these waters. Duke is past all that other stuff from beyond now or from prior years. They are a team that when Cedric Coward came, right, or when he committed, I'm sure they said, "Hey, look, go through the process, but if you're thinking about staying in this draft, let us know that." So they probably are already aware of where these guys' heads are at, and they're just trying to get the information. I will say in the case of Cedric Coward, he mentioned himself that he can't work out for teams right now because he's not fully recovered from that shoulder injury. So that's going to be a hamper. And again, there's 106 underclassmen who declared for the draft. There are only 59 picks in this year's NBA draft, and that is including international players, that's including anybody who has exhausted eligibility. So there's a ton of guys who are going to be in this thing that are going to go through the process, and they're going to go, "Cool, thanks for the information. I'm going to go back to college." Some of these guys are going to be told to go back to college. Some are going to maybe have to make a decision. And I think in the case of Cedric Coward, it's more about what do I need to work on to get to that next level, for you to think of me as a first-round pick. And the fact that he didn't play much last year, the fact that before that he was at Eastern Washington, coming to Duke, he can take this information and go, "Scheyer, this is what I want to work on. This is what I need to work on to get to this next level." And Jon Scheyer will craft a plan to put him in those positions for him to get better and for this team to win. I think that's the point of this roster construction. And I think that's why people just need to be relaxed when it comes to Isaiah Evans and Coward going through this process, because this is all part of it. If there was any inkling that Isaiah Evans was going to leave, I don't think they would have done the social media blasts that they did last week with all these players coming back. They are more aware now of where these guys are at in this process, and they were also aware of Isaiah being in this process before they made that announcement.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is, first of all, I agree with you. I think that it is overwhelmingly likely that Isaiah Evans comes back to Duke. I think that it's very likely that Cedric Coward comes to Duke as well. But let's say we lose one of them. One of them decides to stay in the draft. Jon Scheyer is not a guy who's going to be caught flat-footed. Mm-hmm. Jon Scheyer's roster construction, frankly, past few years, second to none in college basketball. He has done an incredible job of blending the old with the new, of bringing in the right kind of transfer portal pieces. I don't think for a moment that Jon Scheyer's going to be like, "Wait, what happened? Oh my gosh, there's nowhere for us to turn." I'll go ahead and tell you right now. There was a lot of talk that Duke was involved with Jameer Watkins from Florida State, who is one of the best players in the transfer portal. He has not picked a school yet. Jameer Watkins hasn't. I don't think Duke is currently involved with him, but if something happened to one of our wings, to Isaiah Evans or Cedric Coward, it wouldn't be difficult for Jon Scheyer to pick up the phone and get on the phone to Jameer Watkins again. And PJ Haggerty is still in the portal. I don't think Duke's going to get involved with PJ Haggerty, but that dude's like one of the top, Watkins and Haggerty.
He was third in college basketball in scoring last year. So
yeah. And for that matter, Darian Williams of Texas Tech is another win. There are 3 of the top 10, top 15, depends on your ranking. 3 of the top 10 to 15 portal guys are wings who are uncommitted at this time. If for some reason Duke finds themselves a little bit flat-footed, surprised perhaps by someone's NBA decision, it's not all over. Jon Scheyer is going to adjust. I don't know how he would adjust. I don't know who he would adjust to. And there are also some international players out there who could be that adjustment point. Dame Sarr. But I think Duke fans who are panicking, Duke fans who are like, oh my God, we're going to lose these guys. The roster construction isn't finished. As I mentioned at the start of all this, I think there are a couple more guys that Duke's going to add. And if for some reason one of these guys surprises everybody and makes a decision, gets a first round guarantee or something like that and makes a decision that they're going to test out the NBA, Duke's going to be just fine. If you go to Bart Torvik's rankings for college basketball, you could subtract players from rosters and see how that roster stacks up. Bart Torvik currently has Duke as the number 4 team for next year, assuming both Cedric Coward and Isaiah Evans are on the team. If you subtract Cedric Coward and Isaiah Evans, Bart Torvik says Duke is the number 7 team. So it's not like...
I was going to say, yeah, not that far out.
It's not like we're in terrible, dire straits. And again, I'm telling you, this roster isn't finished. Jon Scheyer will find pieces, whether they be deep bench pieces to help out in practice, or if necessary, a full rotation piece, someone who can be one of the better players in the team. I have full faith because all my experience with Jon Scheyer is that he gets it done when it comes to roster construction. I have full faith that he will construct a heck of a roster around Cameron Boozer and the other guys who are going to be on that team next year.
Yeah, I think also, right, like there's some things that you have to go through the process to get. Again, some specific feedback that you can't just call up teams and go, hey, what do you think, right? It's not like a service where you kind of go, hi, Detroit Pistons, tell me how you feel. Atlanta Hawks, tell me how you feel. They have
right, they don't want to waste their time. Yeah.
Right, but they can't do that to every single guy, right? So they're like, okay, if you're trying to decide whether you're going to enter the draft, off the record, I can give some stuff. But then they go through this process, whether it's the combine or workouts and things like that. And the NBA issues them kind of a grade, like lottery pick, first round, late first round, early second. They give them a grade that they and the player can go, this is how the NBA sees me. And they're not giving 106 guys lottery pick or first round grades. They're going to tell people, give them real, like, hey, we don't think you're going to be drafted. Use that how you will. And some guys will take that and kind of go, well, they're nuts, and still decide to stay in the draft. That happens. But we've had guys test the waters and come back. Javin DeLaurier did it. And this was back in the time, right, when you could only do it once. And you kind of go, okay, I'm going to test his waters once and retain my eligibility. He did that. He got the information. He came back to college. Sion James last year, as I mentioned, when we got Cedric Coward, Sion James was technically in the NBA draft test phase. He committed to Duke, and it was almost, Jason, like, I think before you even had a chance to sit down with him at Tulane, he was like, okay, I'm removing myself from the draft. I'm going to come to Duke, right? He got the information that he needed to make that decision. So,
and by the way, it's a decision that paid off for him. He was not. I think he's pretty much assured of being a draft pick after this past season.
Absolutely,
and that was not the case a year ago.
And Duke can probably show that to Cedric Coward and go, look at this meteoric rise that Sion James had in the terms of what he's viewed as by the NBA, right? Nobody heard of Sion James, couldn't even pronounce his name right a year ago. Now everyone knows who Sion James is, and that kind of prestige that he got from playing here and playing so well for a year is going to help him at the next level. So those are things that, again, can add to what Duke can provide him as far as information for them to make an informed decision. The deadline for guys to withdraw from the NBA draft and still retain college eligibility is not June 15th. That was what has been circulated a lot throughout social media and online. It is May 28th. So it's not something where we're waiting until a few days before the draft to find out whether these guys are going to come back. It honestly, the combine is in a week. I believe it starts in a week in Chicago. I think we're gonna know by then what's happening with a lot of these guys, not just Slim and Cedric Coward. we're going to know what's good. Some of these guys who are going to be withdrawing themselves pretty soon, whether they're getting invites to the combine or to the G League combine. That is going to determine a lot of people that make their decisions as to whether or not they come back. But as you said, Jason, there's a lot that still is coming. You mentioned a couple of guys that we're kind of looking at in this year's recruiting class, next year's recruiting class. There's been some talk of guys maybe reclassifying, but make no mistake, these guys are on it, and we just get to sit back and watch and kind of see what will come down. But I'm very excited about this roster so far, and as you mentioned, this is a very strong roster regardless, and it's still not done. It's still puzzle pieces are being found and added to this mix so that this team can be as great as it can be moving forward.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that I think more than half the guys who are in the transfer portal are still in the transfer portal. So there's
it was like 800 guys or something.
it's outrageous the number of guys who are still in the portal. So yeah, it's too early to panic. Let's just put it that way.
Too early to panic. Yeah, it's not an election, but too early to call right now. So stay tuned. As we close out, I wanted to talk about the ACC All Academic teams that were released a couple of days ago, and they don't do this where like first team, second team, third team. They just have a list of guys in men's basketball who make this team, and 7 Duke athletes, 7 Duke men's basketball players make the All Academic team. Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster, they are both 2-time honorees, so congratulations to them again. Mason Gillis, Sion James, Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple, and Common Malwatch also make the All Academic team. 31 consecutive seasons, Duke has had at least one selection to this team, and now Duke has 120 All ACC academic picks all time, more than any other school in the conference. How do you get on this team, or at least how are you eligible for this team? You have to have academic requirements, obviously. 3.0 GPA for the previous semester, a 3.0 cumulative average throughout your entire career. And then in addition, they must compete in at least 50% of their team's contests. So for the guys who are at the end of the bench, unfortunately, despite the fact that they are also excelling in the classroom, they are not eligible for this particular team. But Jason, very quickly, your thoughts on Tyrese, Caleb, Mason, Sion, Cooper, Con, and Common making All Academic honors.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, that's 7 guys. Stanford had 9 players on the ACC all ACC academic team. Duke and NC State had 7, so we tied for second most out of 18 teams in this conference. It's a big old conference these days, and being runner-up to Stanford on any athletic and academic ranking is not the end of the world, although I think Duke usually leads the ACC. Now we have some real competition with Stanford and Cal and a few other schools that really excel academically. I want to especially shout out CFOS, Tyrese, Sion, and Mason, because as you mentioned, it's not just it's a 3.0 from your previous semester, but it's a cumulative 3.0 over the course of your career. Those guys have been at Duke for multiple years. And especially in the case of a guy like Tyrese, 3 years, and Sion and Mason, who are grad students. That means they're pretty much, they're getting mostly A's and some B's throughout their entire career. Yeah.
And Jason, I don't know in the case of Sion and Mason if they take their previous school
they do
GPA.
They do.
Oh, they do. Okay, that's
they
good.
Do.
At least the A, because I know nationally they do, obviously, but I didn't know if the ACC took that into account. But it's great that they do.
No, yeah, it's a cumulative GPA over the course of your entire college career that they consider. And again, I just think it's a great testament to those players. It's worth noting, by the way, as you said, you have to play in at least 50% of your team's contests. I mean, we're talking about basically, Duke's like top 7 guys for the most part made this team. It is a just tremendous testament to the hard work they put in on the court and off the court. I love the fact that the best players are the ones who made this team. It shows that these are guys who are interested in excellence in all aspects of their lives. And we were very fortunate to have these guys with us for a year, and we're fortunate to be getting Caleb Foster back for another year. And I dearly hope that the Darren Harrises, the Isaiah Evanses, the Malik Browns, and the such, the other guy, Patrick Gongba, the other guys who are coming back, I hope that they are able to pull up their GPAs and get to the point where they can win this award next year, because it is a big deal, and we don't celebrate it enough. We really should. They are still, even though they're getting paid, even though the transfer portal is moving them around, these are still student athletes, and we should not forget that part of their career, the student side.
You focused on the upperclassmen. I'm going to focus on the freshmen on this list: Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple, and Kamen Malawach, who, Jason, I don't know if you knew this, but those guys are going to the NBA draft. We have been saying those words since last summer. For guys who were very much expected, and especially in the case of Cooper and Man last year, very much expected to be top 1, top 5 picks in the NBA draft. And Con Knipple, who kind of emerged very early on to be a guy that people thought would be a lottery pick. It's very easy for them to be like, school? What school? We've seen it from college students all the time, and not just guys who knew they were going to be one and done. They kind of shirked the student part of the student athlete responsibility. So for those guys too, and I think throughout the year, they kind of talked about the fact that Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple and Man all had like 4.0s or very close to it. So these guys were not just excelling in the classroom; they're at the top of their classes, and really doing well. And really, again, first of all, it means that they were unpacking their bags and really getting into the college experience. It very much seemed like all three of them really enjoyed being in school and learning from their teammates and learning from their classmates. So the fact that those guys were able to do all that, be All-Americans, National Players of the Year, get this team to a Final Four, and do all those things on the court, and then in the classroom remember that, hey, despite the fact that I know I'm only doing this maybe for a year, I'm going to excel at it, so that whenever I decide to finish my degree, I can pick right back up and carry on where I left off. That is a testament, again, to how this program is reshaped and said, hey, we're not going to be cutting corners anywhere, whether it's in the classroom or on the court. And these guys are buying into that and really, again, excelling in their year on campus. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to all 7 of these guys on this list. It's very, very awesome to have so many on this list of yours. It's a list, Jason, that you and I look forward to every single year. And I know a lot of you out there as well, because Duke, we're a smart school. We like guys who can take care of the books as well as the basket. So we're really appreciative of their efforts. One last thing, Jason, before you go out.
Donald, I want to give you a chance right now to pronounce the university, the small Division III university that Cedric Coward attended, because we got numerous emails from...
No, don't do that. We got 2. We got 2 emails.
Hey, 2 is numerous.
2 is a couple. But yes, it is Willamette. As I've mentioned to these people...
Say it again.
Willamette, damn it. Funny enough, I practiced that, and then we got online because we were going to do that the next day, and then we got online at like 10:30 my time, and all pronunciation went out the window. So really, apologies for that. We try to get it right on this show, and but it's very, very funny. Very quickly, the people from the Pacific Northwest were very quick to correct the pronunciation of Willamette, damn it. And that's actually how the 2 people told us to pronounce it, Willamette, damn it. Apologies to Willamette, apologies to Cedric Coward, but I think it's also great that people keep us accountable on this show.
Yes. Look, I will say that you got fewer emails about that than I did when I renamed Spencer Borden Stanley Borden.
That one still goes on in the forum.
I mean, Spencer Hubbard, Stanley Hubbard. That's what I still get it wrong. I can't believe I'm doing this to the poor guy. We got many emails about that, and I'm disappointed, everybody. How come we didn't get more emails about Scott Rich referring to Cedric Coward as Colin Coward? He turned him into a radio personality. Scott, man, if you're going to maintain your spot as the designated backup here on the DBR podcast, you can't be misspeaking the name of the Duke players, although apparently you can, because I've done it before.
You can.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it sounds like he's fitting right in. I will say on a note, thank you to Scott, thank you to Jordan, who subbed in for Jason in his absence. I think a lot of people enjoyed having those perspectives on the show. We really appreciate it. Of course, they will be back very soon. Jason, I don't know how this new schedule is going to work. This new cycle is going to work because we're in that kind of period where we're waiting for something that we don't know is coming. So things could come at any minute. Of course, you and I will react to that. But I will say a week from today will be the beginning of graduation weekend. So congratulations to all of you out there who may be listening to the show who is graduating. Also would like to shout out all the guys on the Duke basketball teams, both the men and the women, who will be getting their graduation diplomas next weekend. If we don't hear before then, very, very cool to have so many guys come to the school and graduate. Jason, you and I are graduates. We take that as some of the greatest moments that we will ever have in our adult lives. And so for those guys, for those people who are taking that walk next weekend, enjoy it with your families and really hope that you get to have that special moment. I believe Grant Hill is speaking, Jason. So maybe I should go down there and check out what he has to say.
Yeah, man, dude, that's a heck of a graduation speaker. I also want to note that we're about to begin to really get into, over the next couple months, summer recruiting for the class of 2026. And we will be paying attention to that. And it is worth noting that Kara Lawson picked up her first prospect, I believe her first prospect in the class of 2026 just in the past day or two. She's a 6'4" center, Taylor, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna butcher her last name. It's Taylor Sofilkinich. I think, something like that. Anyway, top 40-ish kind of recruit, considered the best player in the state of New Jersey, a 6'4" center. And look, the Duke women have struggled a little bit with size, and I'm sure that they're bringing in Taylor next year with an eye towards someone who can provide a bit more size on the interior. She's, by the way, not just someone who hangs out by the basket. She's got really good perimeter skills as well. So a really, really nice recruit to start off the class of 2026 for Coach Kara Lawson.
Yeah, I was going to mention size is something that is becoming more important in the women's game. We've seen a lot of players, even like guards, right, that are 6'1", 6'2". We've seen some centers who are 6'8", 6'9", that are really thriving. So to have a little bit more size in that interior post is going to be terrific. Of course, we have to wait, I believe, another year before she arrives on campus. But a great start for Kara Lawson in the recruiting trail. Jason, that will do it for this episode of DBR, the Duke Basketball Roundup. Thank you, as always, for listening. Jason, welcome home. Glad you're back. We will talk to you all next time. Until then, he's Jason. I'm Donald. This now is the Duke Band to play us out and take us home.